So, US Secretary of State John Kerry there having a press conference with his Turkish counterpart, Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoglu. John Kerry said it was a short visit with a lot of business packed into it. He said he attended the funeral of the Turkish security guard who was killed outside the US Embassy last month in Turkey during an attack. He said the US stands strongly with Turkey in the fight against terrorism. On the issue of Syria, he said that they extended their discussions over ways to find a transition of political power in Syria. He said there is no legitimacy in a regime that commits atrocities against its own people. Let's now talk to Nisreen El-Shamayleh. She's in Antakya on the Turkish-Syria border. Nisreen, John Kerry's visit clearly focusing on the crisis in Syria. How significant is the US Secretary of State's visit to Turkey, and what's the message from this press conference?
Well, actually, Darren, John Kerry gave very few messages on Syria. I think the Turkish administration, the government, expects to hear more than just these statements that they share a common ground when it comes to the removal of Bashar al-Assad, that he has to leave Syria, that they don't recognize his government as a legitimate one. So he basically outlined the very basics that have to do with how the two countries see the resolution of the conflict, which is that Bashar al-Assad has to leave. But from what we understand, I think Turkish officials are expecting the US to try to trust the opposition more, to try to give them, let's say, more logistical support. I'm not talking about arms just yet, because I think that both Turkey and the US are reluctant to provide arms for the rebels in Syria. We've heard John Kerry announce in Rome tens of millions of dollars to be given to the Syrian opposition, the rebels, in only medical supplies and food, but not more than that. And I think the Turks are also reluctant to use their border as a way to transfer weapons into Syria, because that means that the border, which is already volatile, will become more dangerous. So there are reservations on both sides, obviously, but I think the Turks are looking for more words of support from the Americans towards the opposition. They want them to trust the rebels more and to try to help find a resolution that would lead to a political transition. One of the interesting points, in several cases he made references to the freedom of speech and democracy and the urge to create an atmosphere of tolerance. I think that may have been in reference to the statements made by the Turkish Prime Minister earlier this week, where at a UN forum in Vienna, he equated Zionism to a crime against humanity, and he even compared it to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and fascism. And we saw a lot of strong statements coming from Israel and the United States saying that these words and comments are simply not acceptable and they're wrong.
Nisreen, thank you.